Matthew Hinty.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm, under the penalty of perjury, the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, or so you do affirm?
I do.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Shea.
Thank you, Judge. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Could you please state your name?
Officer Matthew Hinty,
Where are you employed, sir?
Northern Arizona University Police Department.
In what capacity?
I'm a police officer.
Can you give us a brief explanation of your training and experience, please?
Yes, I attended the Arizona Law Enforcement Academy from November of 2012 until April of 2013. While at the Arizona Law Enforcement Academy, I was trained in the enforcement of criminal law along with a variety of other subjects, including use of force, crime scene management, and those types of things. After that, I completed a 12-week field training program with the Northern Arizona University Police Department, at which time I was released onto solo status as a police officer.
When was that?
That was approximately July of 2013.
All right. Directing your attention now, sir, to the very early morning hours of October 9th of 2015. Do you recall that date?
Yes, I do.
Approximately 1:20 a.m. did you respond to a dispatch?
Yes, I did.
What was the dispatch?
I was dispatched as a subject with a gun who was actively firing.
All right. And was there a location indicated?
Yes, it was given as Mountain View Hall on the NAU campus.
Were you familiar with that area?
Yes, I am.
So what did you do?
I responded to that area. I was actually parked at San Francisco Street and Mountain View Drive at the time. I drove directly eastbound on Mountain View Drive. The initial dispatch didn't give an exact location of the call, so I pulled into the Mountain View Service Drive, which is just west of the actual hall. I parked my vehicle roughly at the intersection of that service drive and actual Mountain View Drive. I deployed my patrol rifle and I exited the vehicle.
Were you wearing your uniform?
Yes, I was.
Is that the same uniform you're wearing today?
Yes, it was, minus the tie.
And were you driving a marked cruiser?
Yes, I was.
So after you parked in that area on Mountain View Service Road, is that correct?
Correct.
What did you do?
At that point, they relayed some further information that the actual scene of the incident was a lot closer to the north half of that area, towards Lot 7 Adam and kind of the north half of Mountain View Drive along Franklin Avenue. And so I began running northbound along that service drive towards that area to attempt and locate the scene.
You referred to the designation for the lot. What is that?
Lot 7 Adam.
7, okay, so that's
7A.
police speak for A?
Correct.
All right. 7A, is that also known as like the, is there another like more common usage name for that lot, or?
A lot of the kids who reside in Mountain View just call it the Mountain View parking lot.
Okay. All right. As you approached that area, did you make observations?
I did.
Can you please explain those to the jury?
As I approached the area, I observed several subjects in the area of the southeast corner of Lot 7A. There were several subjects on the ground. There was screaming and yelling. At that point, we weren't quite sure what was going on, and so we began giving verbal commands to everybody who was present in that area. Myself, along with several Flagstaff police officers, began giving verbal commands to those subjects to get on the ground until we could determine exactly what was going on.
Okay. So let me just be clear. You approached on foot from your cruiser on your own, right?
Correct. I was by myself at that time.
You met other officers also approaching from other directions?
Yes.
Okay. And so you were ordering everybody onto the ground, is that correct?
Correct.
And that was for safety purposes?
Correct. At that point, we did not know exactly what the situation was, and so we were attempting to secure the scene.
All right. So after orders were being essentially yelled out or commands were being given, did people get on the ground?
Yes, it took a little bit of time just because of the screaming and the yelling, but eventually we were able to get everybody on the ground and compliant.
All right. So once people were beginning to get on the ground and be compliant, did you make further observations of the corner of the lot there?
Yeah, actually, while we were still giving commands, we observed that in that immediate area where I was, there was 2 subjects who appeared to be suffering from gunshot wounds. One subject was conscious and he was screaming, and he appeared to have been shot somewhere in the abdomen or lower back. And then there was another subject who was not conscious at that time, and he appeared to have a gunshot wound to the chest.
All right. And can you give me an explanation of the location where you observed those 2 subjects you just described?
Yes, they were both pretty much directly in that southeast corner of that lot, lying on the ground. It's hard to describe exactly how that corner is, but basically where that corner of that lot ends and it becomes rock and gravel, they were directly in the corner of that lot.
You were wearing a body camera, is that correct?
I was, yes.
Okay. And we'll get to that in a few minutes. Was there anything besides people that you made an observation of at that time?
Yes, we did observe that there was a firearm sitting in that southeast corner as well. And at that point, I directed one of the other officers on scene to stand and secure that firearm to make sure that we kept control of it.
Very well. Are you familiar with Officer Keegan Park?
I am.
Did you hear anything over the radio from him at that time?
Yeah, as we were starting to get people in handcuffs and then get the situation calmed down and started to render aid, he did relay eventually that he had a subject in custody that he believed to have admitted to being involved in the incident.
Admitted to being the shooter?
Correct.
Was there any action taken by yourself or that you observed other officers with regards to the young man who was lying in the rocks?
Yes. Initially, as I said, we were trying to get control of the scene. Once we had that control, we began to render aid. At that point, another officer who was on scene made the comment that it appeared that that subject was not breathing. And so one of the Flagstaff police officers began to perform CPR on that subject. After a short time, that officer relayed that he actually had a trauma pack with him secured in his vest. We made the determination that it would probably be better for him to use the contents of that trauma pack on the second injured subject there. And so he removed that trauma pack and went to render aid to the second subject, and I took over chest compressions on the unconscious, not breathing subject in the lot.
Did you also make efforts to get EMTs or medical personnel into the scene?
We did, yes, as quickly as we could.
But that requires securing the scene first, is that correct?
Correct.
So what did you do? You're just relaying information over the radio, indicating security of the scene and what you're observing?
Correct, yeah. I was providing information to Officer Park, attempting to ascertain whether or not he had that, the scene was safe, and he did relay that he had that subject in custody. At that point, I did relay that we need medics to our location first, as we had a subject who was not breathing, and I believe that was the highest priority in terms of medical treatment at that time.
As you were providing chest compressions or CPR to that individual, did you make any observations indicating injury?
Yes, I did observe what appeared to be a gunshot wound to his right chest area.
Shortly after that, did medical personnel take over your efforts?
They did.
And they were from where?
The Flagstaff Fire Department.
What did you do at that point?
At that point, knowing that from what we knew, we had the scene secure, and I believed it was probably good to start setting up a perimeter at that time and dealing with the crime scene. I ran back to my vehicle, which again was parked at the intersection of roughly the Mountain View Drive and the Mountain View Service Drive. I ran to my vehicle and then drove it a little bit closer to the scene and activated my emergency lights to try to start creating a little bit of a barrier to secure that crime scene.
Did you ultimately learn the name of the individual you tried to help?
I did, yes.
And what was that name?
Colin Brew.
At some point in time, you were given information about his status, is that correct?
That is correct.
Do you recall approximately what time?
I believe it was approximately 01:35 hours.
And what was that status?
The Flagstaff Fire Department informed me that he was deceased.
And what did you do?
At that point, I went and obtained a blanket from the rear of my patrol vehicle and placed it over him, just because of the large number of people that were outside and the fact that there's several windows that face that crime scene.
Okay. And you also communicated that information to dispatch, is that correct?
That is correct.
The remainder of your efforts revolved around the scene, is that fair to say?
That would be correct.
And that would include what?
I began to assist with setting up crime scene tape. I spoke to Sergeant Bishop and Sergeant Martinez from the Flagstaff Police Department, who were starting to coordinate essentially the response with detectives and other personnel to ensure they didn't need anything else from me. I assisted in ensuring that there weren't any other outstanding witnesses that needed to be transported for questioning. And then I just maintained basically a scene perimeter for the remainder of the time.
All right, Officer Hinty, you indicated that you had a body camera on, is that correct?
That is correct.
Can you just give the jury a brief understanding of the functioning of those body cameras?
Yes, it's basically a chest-mounted body camera that mounts somewhere either in our pocket or on our shirt. When the button to turn it on is pressed, it immediately begins recording, and it records both audio and video from that point forward. Our body cameras do not have any type of pre-record or anything like that.
Okay. So what you're referring to there is some body cameras will, when you press the button, they'll have saved the last 30 seconds or so.
Correct.
And that's just video but no sound.
Yes,
right?
but ours do not do that.
Yours were not like that. Okay. All right. That exhibit is 346.
Sure.
Your Honor, I've mentioned to counsel and would indicate that exhibit number 346 is a clip of Officer Hinty's body camera. The state would offer that at this time.
Any objection? No objection. 346 is admitted.
May I publish, Your Honor?
Yes.
It's right here. Guys, let's start putting cuffs on people. Okay, everybody's gonna get handcuffs. We have the ambulance coming for the people. All right. Do you have injuries? No, okay. Okay, that kid looks like he's quit breathing. Are you guys ready? Okay, I got you. He's still conscious. So I got one here with a gunshot wound to the chest. Have them check out what goes first. But we got him coming in, we just cleared him. We're having a service drive.
Oh, no. Are you big? No. Are you big? For now?
Let's call and see how we attend. Just we got CPR guards on one. Okay, calm down. 606, well, I didn't know you at first, but you gotta go you over there.
Sir, we saw that the camera seemed to be blacked out at times. Can you explain why that was?
Yes, because I had my rifle deployed, and the way the sling on that rifle sits across your chest, when you hold the rifle, it essentially it's be a low ready position or not pointed at somebody. It has a tendency to block off the view of that camera.
And you would agree that that's an accurate representation of the first 3.5 minutes that you were at the scene. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Nothing further at this time, Judge. Thank you.
Mr. McGowan?
Good morning.
I don't have a lot of questions for you. Just last moment there, you mentioned how your body cam was blocked by your rifle, and you said something about low ready. What is low ready? Can you explain that to the jury?
Essentially, it's a position with a handgun or a rifle where you're not pointing directly at target. You have a position where it's not completely down, but you're ready to bring it up onto target if you have to at any time.
Okay, and I think you said when it's in low ready, you're not pointing it at some person, right?
Correct.
Another question.
Redirect.
Nothing further, Judge. Thank you.
All right, I'll turn to members of our jury and see if they have any questions for this witness. And it does not appear that we do. Can this witness be excused?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
Officer, thank you for your testimony. You are excused.
Thank you.
Next witness, please.
Thank you, Judge. The state calls Detective Casey Rucker.
Oh, yeah, thanks, Steve.
State will sit for the judge.
We want to put on the record that the parties will waive reporting of the audio recordings by my reporter.
No objection.
Okay, thank you. So stipulated.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, or so you do affirm?
Yes.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Parker.
Thank you, Judge. Morning, sir.
Good morning.
Can you state your name for the record, please?
Certainly. My name is Casey Rucker. I'm a detective with the City of Flagstaff Police Department.
Okay, how long have you been with Flag PD?
Next month will be 16 years.
And what have been your assignments as you've served as a police officer at Flag PD?
So like most, I began my career working in the capacity of a patrol officer, responding to emergency calls for service. From there, I transferred to the Northern Arizona Street Crimes Task Force. There I worked with a primary area of investigative responsibility of the sale and manufacturing of illegal drugs throughout Northern Arizona. I promoted to the rank of corporal out of that unit, which took me back to the patrol division, where I worked as a first-line supervisor to my assigned patrol squad. And then from there, I transferred to the criminal investigations division, where I've worked as a detective for just over 11 years now.
All right. And you had some involvement in this case, is that correct?
I did.
And what was your role?
I was one of the investigators assigned to processing the crime scene.
Okay, and just describe in layman's terms what processing a scene entails.
So we want to record, analyze, document, and collect the information that's at that location.
Okay. And as part of processing the scene, did your department perform what's called a Leica scan?
We did.
And can you describe to the jury what that means?
Leica is the manufacturer of a laser scan station that we have procured to scan, document, and record the environment of our crime scenes. Now, laser scanning is really a high accuracy mapping system. It uses a laser to register and measure objects that are in front of and around the scan station, measuring them in distance and in angle, measuring up to 1 million points per second. I've heard and I like the analogy that it's like a 360-degree digital photograph, but with a precision point for every pixel in the image.
Okay. And so just describe the process of taking one of these scans at the scene.
So the scan station is much like a camera on a tripod. So you would set it up at a given location, and there's a few settings where you tell it you want it to scan in 360 degrees. You set whether or not you want it to take photographs as well, and then you move away from it and let it scan the environment.
And in this case, were there multiple scan locations?
A total of 11, yes, sir.
And what is the benefit of doing multiple scan locations?
So the scan station sees what we see. So as I sit on the witness stand here this morning, I can see the front of the podium that you're at and the tables beyond that, but I can't see behind it. So to obtain that data, once the scan is done here, we would simply move the scan station to that new location so it can scan and grab the data from that perspective or that view. That data is then later stitched into a complementing computer software program that puts all of the data from all of those scans together and gives us a comprehensive view that's rather interactive of that scene in its totality.
Okay, and you've seen this scan since it was taken,
I have.
correct? And you've interacted with it?
I have.
And did it comport with your observations of the scene when it was taken?
Yes.
Do you recall when the scans were taken of this scene?
October 9, 2015.
And give us a time frame of when it began, when it ended?
Early morning hours, and then it didn't finish until early afternoon.
Okay, so the process of scanning the scene, it takes some time for the scan to make that 360-degree scan, is that correct?
Right about 20 plus minutes per scan.
Okay, and after that, you're moving it to a different location, it's taking another scan, and so on?
Correct.
Sure.
Does the state move to admit 316, which is the Trueview like scan? No objection.
316 is admitted,
And permission to publish?
granted.
As we're getting that hooked up, Detective, let me ask you a few more questions. You mentioned there were several different scan locations. We're going to show the jury in a minute what's called the Trueview Leica scan. Can you describe what that is?
So if I might back up a step.
Sure.
The data, once the scan station is complete, or we're done scanning an area, that data is removed from the scan station, and like I was saying, it's put into a complementing computer software program that reads that data. There's another program which Mr. Barker's referring to called Trueview. So while, in addition to the laser scan measurements that I was just talking about, the scan station also takes digital photographs. In this case, 260 digital photos per scan. And that data, those photos are overlaid over top of the point cloud of the laser scan in this Trueview software program. And what that does is what we'll see is it offers an interactive view of the scene of what the scan station saw, what the world looked like at that time from that perspective. And it allows us to basically, as we can point and click with the mouse from scan station location to scan station location, we can interactively walk the scene, having a 360-degree view of that world.
Okay, I think we're ready now. Let me show you 316.
That's not
it.
That's not it.
It's a different scene, isn't it? Yeah, thanks for the lights. We have this working this morning. Can you confirm that?
Yes.
All right. Let me talk about the other part of Leica that we're not going to be able to show right now. There's another version of Leica which isn't just the Trueview. It's called a Cyclone. Can you describe what that is?
So Cyclone is the program that we would take the data from the scan station and put it into that. That gives us our point cloud. That's where the data from, or the information from each of the scanning locations is stitched together, giving us our 3D rendering of that scene. Comparatively, Trueview gives us, looking at photographs, color digital photographs in 360 degrees. The Cyclone program allows us to kind of fly through the scene, if you will, and we can take different perspectives from different points within the scene.
Okay. And is that Cyclone version, is it registered to a certain computer in your department?
It is.
Why is that?
Well, because the company has a registration fee that we pay on an annual basis, and it comes with a licensing key and some other technical aspects, so we have it on one dedicated laptop that has the processing and the other components necessary to run the speed and the capabilities of this program.
Okay, and let's see if we can make that work. Judge, with permission, I'd ask the detective come to our table so he can work that laptop.
Sure. No. Go ahead, Detective.
And if you could, detective, speak into this microphone as best you can as we're going through this program.
Switch to the, just push it up. Go ahead and put it on HDMI.
All right, what we're seeing here is what?
This is the data from the point cloud after the scenes from each of the scans have been stitched together.
Okay, and this is the interactive version of the Leica scan you were talking about?
Yes.
So kind of orient the jury where we're looking.
So here we're looking, I'll fly around here. So now I'm looking to the west. This area here is our parking lot. These would be NAU Mountain View dorms. This road here to the left of the screen is East Franklin. And the area center point here is our main parking lot or our crime scene area.
Okay, if you could zoom in, Detective, can you indicate where the defendant's car was located?
So his vehicle was located right here.
All right. And as you observed what was going on in the scene when you arrived, where was most of the evidence that you discovered located?
The majority of the evidence found here in process was located in this there's a end parking stall here located on this, what is the southeast corner of the parking lot. Just below our view here.
Okay. So if you could, Detective, can you show the jury the perspective of sitting inside the defendant's vehicle in the driver's side seat?
So we would just scroll back to that location, target the driver's seat area, and then we just fly into the car there, and we pan up, and we can see the view from that perspective.
All right, and this is the direction facing Mountain View dorm at this point?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's take another perspective. Can you show us what it looks like from where most of the evidence in this case was collected, that end stall in the corner of the parking lot, looking toward the direction of the defendant's car?
Sure. So here we can see we have, now this environment at the bottom of the screen is rock landscaping, and there's a bush there to the right. So we're taking the position east of that, looking west into that end parking stall in that area.
Now, some of this is pretty grainy, and it looks like there's some images that you can't quite make out. What is that?
So what we're looking at here is really the pixel data that the scan station has collected at the time it was scanned. What we have in here, like in the center of the image, is what we call a ghost image. So that is Detective Slayton. He was capped by one of the scans. Part of him was captured standing there. He wasn't there when the second scan was done, or he's moved out of that, so that's why we have that kind of incomplete ghost image of him standing there.
I'm going to use this laser pointer. You see some, oh thanks. You see some orange cones, it looks like, some placards, and was that part of the processing of the scene?
It was.
And what is this image right here?
That is the victim.
The deceased in this case?
As he lay on the ground, yes.
If you could show us one more perspective, Detective, can you take us into almost looking from the window of one of those Mountain View dorm rooms?
So if we wanted to, like we were talking perspectives, part of that fly-through we were talking about a moment ago allows us to go into an area, such as, say, this window of the Mountain View dorm, and we can take the perspective. If somebody were standing inside that room looking out the window, this is the perspective that the environment would have looked like from there.
All right, thank you. I'm going to have to take the stand again. Appreciate it. We're going to try to get the Trueview scan to work here in a minute. Now, as you were working with the software, were you able to create a diagram, a 2-scale diagram based on this imaging?
Right.
Okay. And just describe that process.
So it's really just that. You take an aerial view of that data that we were looking at, and then another complementing computer software program that comes with this scanner is we overlay that. We can mark lines, curbs, trees, bushes, cars, boundaries of parking stalls, and it's using that point cloud data so we know that that those objects are accurately placed and marked.
All right. May I approach, Judge?
Yes.
Exhibit 82. Is that the diagram we're talking about?
Yes,
And that diagram actually has some distances indicated in it. Is that right?
it does.
And what do those distances indicate?
So like we were talking a moment ago, it takes up to 1 million points per second, so that data is measurable later to any object that's found within the scan. So what I did with this object after I created the overhead view with marking the lines, the parking stalls where vehicles were placed, is I simply took a measurement from, there was a vehicle parked on Franklin near the entrance, the driveway into this Mountain View Hall parking lot. I took a measurement from there to the driver's side door area of Mr. Jones's vehicle as it was parked. And then I took another measurement from that location up to the area where the deceased was found lying.
Okay. Move to admit Exhibit 82, Judge.
Any objection to 82? 82 is admitted.
Thank you. And what were those distances? Let's take it from the corner of that car outside of the parking lot to the defendant's car. What was that distance?
151.69 feet.
Okay. And the distance from the defendant's car to the crime scene was how much?
95.62 feet.
Let's see if we can publish this. How many people does it take? Right? There we go. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jared. Francine. All right, Detective, we're showing now what's been marked as exhibit and admitted as Exhibit 316. Is this the Trueview Leica scan we were discussing earlier?
It is.
And I'm going to navigate this, and you tell the jury what we're looking at. Just tell the jury the perspective we're viewing right now.
So this is from what was the first scan taken that morning. It's on the sidewalk east of and kind of south of that parking stall that we were referencing a moment ago.
Okay, and it looks like there's some coloration here. This is darker on the right side. On the left side, it's lighter. What's that about?
It did, and really that's example of the sensitivity of the instrument because it captured the change in the lighting conditions that occurred while the scanning, from the time it started to when it finished.
All right. Let's jump to a different scan location. I'm going to Station 3 now. And we can actually scroll 360 degrees, correct?
Correct.
So now what perspective are we looking at?
You're in the parking lot. If you look from this view, To the far left, you have the front end of Mr. Jones's vehicle. Again, we're looking to the east. So what would be in the far right corner is that end parking stall that we were talking about or referencing moments ago.
Judge, may I approach the witness?
Yes.
Let me hand you this laser pointer. Let me jump to Station 2. This is a different scan locations. Excuse me. Here we go. This is another scan location, is that correct?
It is. So this is just east with a, it's like a privacy wall. So what we're referencing is here on the sidewalk. It's placed there to help try to conceal the victim's body from those on the opposite side. It's like a privacy wall.
And we're not going to go through all these scan locations right now, but let's just take another look. You said there were 11 total scan locations?
Yes, sir.
And what perspective are we at now?
So you're now in the driveway of, kind of the northeast driveway of Mountain View Hall parking lot. What you're looking at here to the left is Franklin Drive. Here's the duplex of 262 East Franklin, with a view looking east.
All right, thank you, Detective. All right, that's all I have at this time, thank you.
Cross-exam.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Detective, the Leica scan is very accurate, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. It can measure distances on a horizontal plane, correct?
Correct.
And also distances on a vertical plane?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Would you be so kind to go back to counsel's table so I could ask you to point out some other areas?
Sure.
For the jury? Thank you.
Go ahead.
I wanted to focus on the southeast corner of the parking lot. This, by the way, parking lot is the Mountain View parking lot, correct?
Yes, sir. Ooh, sorry, I'm going the wrong way on you. There we go.
This is parking lot 7A, also sometimes referred to as the Mountain View parking lot, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And this perspective we have right now is approximately from where the Mountain View dorm is looking west onto the parking lot.
Yes, sir.
Now, you showed us earlier a perspective, I think you may have referred to it as a fly-through, or fly-by, something along those terms, that approximately depicted what the view of the parking lot would be like from one of the windows in the Mountain View dorm, right?
Yes.
Okay. Are you able to go back to that? Is that something that's
You bet.
in the same screen?
Well, we might still be there. So you want to go back for the view looking out that window?
Yes, please.
Okay. We'll take a virtual fly-through into there. And then, I'm sorry, I left it on the...
Thank you. You referred earlier, while looking, I think, at another image about changes in lighting conditions being reflected in the photographs. Is that correct?
Yes, in the Trueview.
In the Trueview. Now, with respect to this image here we're looking at, which shows a depiction from a Mountain View window, do you know what time of day it was when this particular image was captured?
So this is the raw data from the, I shouldn't say raw data, this is the data imported from the point cloud. So this isn't capturing daytime, nighttime. So as you can see, it's grabbing the reflection of the objects in front of and around the scan station, and their relative locations. So when you're referencing lighting in a Trueview, we glean that data from the digital photographs that are taken.
Including photographs that are taken during daytime.
Well, you're correct, because it's a flashless camera that's in the scan station, so there's no photos really taken in a no light environment.
Okay. My point being, sir, this is not necessarily an accurate depiction of what one could see looking out that window at 1 o'clock in the morning, with lighting conditions being as they are at that time.
This wouldn't reflect lighting conditions.
And if I understood your testimony correctly, the process of doing the scanning essentially spanned from early morning to early afternoon.
Correct.
A large span of that time being during daylight hours.
Correct.
I want to ask you specifically, sir, about this area here. Is this like an access road or a roadway?
Right, concrete driveway?
Okay. And then here is sort of like gravel area that you talked about?
Yes, sir.
And then here, where the decedent's body is located, this is that end parking stall you discussed, correct?
Yeah, so partially on the downslope of the gravel and the end of the asphalt parking lot there. Or edge.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
You're fine, I'm sorry.
No problem. How do we, using the Leica scan, determine the grade distance or the height difference between this elevated roadway and the parking lot down below?
It's a great question. So what I can do is tell you the elevation. Well, I'm sorry. I can tell you that, oh my gosh.
I bought New Jersey, do you like all
So what I'm doing here is navigating us down to that plane. And I can take a measurement from the edge of the parking lot to, say, the edge of the asphalt, or the area of the asphalt. And I can say that that's a 12-foot, I'm measuring that wrong. No, it's 12 feet, .2 in width.
Let me interrupt you there if I may. So the distance between the edge of the roadway here and the edge of the parking lot is approximately 12 feet?
Yes. But I don't know the elevation of this parking lot, I'm sorry, this driveway, and our parking lot down below, if you're talking about grade.
Is there a way, perhaps without talking about grade or an angle of elevation, of simply in inches or feet, talking about how much higher this area is as compared to this area? It'll take you a while to do that, we can do it later, but does...
So the answer to the question is yes, but as I sit before you today, I don't know how to do that.
Okay. You've walked the scene, you're familiar with this area?
Yes.
Okay. If one is standing at approximately the same location from which this vantage point is depicted, does this appear to be an accurate depiction of what that downward slope looks like?
Yes, I would agree with that.
We have 2 more minutes, Mr. Davidson, then we'll take a break.
Lastly, sir, you indicated that you processed the scene after the light scan is done for the collection of evidence.
For the collection of evidence, yes, sir.
Were you involved in identifying or collecting a pair of eyeglasses that were later determined to be belonging to Mr. Jones?
I was a part of the collection of all evidence from the scene, yes, sir. So I do remember a couple of pairs of eyeglasses, right?
Do you recall where Mr. Jones's eyeglasses were recovered?
I believe they were next to the vehicle on Franklin nearest the driveway.
So if we pan out or zoom out so we can see that, and then we'll take our morning recess.
Forgive me, I'll get us going there. So from this view, I'm going to spin us around and walk us over there. But you're talking about a vehicle that's parked right here. So it's on the north, what would be the northeast side of the driveway leading into the parking lot? I'm sorry. I was just going to say at the base of this car were a pair of eyeglasses.
Okay, basically the driver's side rear corner of this vehicle here.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Okay. I want to ask you the distance between this location and Mr. Jones' Mustang. That's going to take you more than a moment. We can do that after the break if there's something we can do quickly. We'll do that now. This vehicle here is Mr. Jones' Mustang, correct? This is just a part-
Yes, yeah, let me see if I can slide us over so you have a better view on the...
Detective, it's going to take you more than 30 seconds. I'd like to take a break.
We can measure from... don't... I'm sorry, Judge. So from these 2 points that I've marked here, 148.15 feet.
All right. Folks, let's go ahead and take our first morning recess. Please remember the admonition. We'll get back together in about 10 minutes.